Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Ingerman, and welcome to the Shaman's Cave.
And I'm Renee Barabo, and I am excited to be here with you today because we have another really important topic.
Yeah, um, I had an experience, a personal experience, which I don't want to talk about because I'm still integrating it. It was a very powerful healing experience for me. Um, and it brought up questions that I've actually been talking about in my 40 years of teaching shamanism. And as you know, those of you who are familiar with my work know that the form of shamanism that I teach is universal. It does not come from a particular culture. We don't do ceremonies from a particular culture because we have our own creativity. We have our own access to the spirits who can give us amazing healing methods, amazing ceremonies. And so I've just been so in love with shamanism as a practice of direct revelation. And I have personally chosen not to study with an indigenous culture, but to work with my own spirits as teachers. I also have so many students who really want those ancient teachings that come from cultures that are not westernized, and they want to learn those particular teachings. And so they do want to work with a particular culture. And what I keep on saying is there's no right way. You really have to choose the path that feels right to you. So I talked to Renee about it, and we wanted to do a short discussion on what we found in the difference of learning through our own spiritual guidance, our own downloads, our own connections, versus working with an indigenous culture that could have hundreds of years of teachings that go with that culture, or even back 1,000 years. And so that's what we're talking about today.
It's a great topic, and I've had both. You know, I think a lot of it was for me is like I get really excited about new adventures, and a lot of times, a lot of people do a lot of research around things and make their informed decisions, and I'm not. I do a lot of research for when I'm writing and things like that, but I usually go with my gut. Like I ended up doing, one spiritual practice for many years because somebody said, "Oh, let's go do that." And I was actually talking to somebody on the Shaman's Cave this morning about it because I'm seeing a reintroduction of some of the indigenous traditions in the country from a more heartfelt, let's embrace you kind of an experience. Whereas when I did it, I was embraced, then I was given the boot, and then I found myself in another cultural experience where they're like, oh, we're just here to share our genuine hearts with, the North, because they, the condor eagle analogy of that's what their work was to do. So I've been in both. I've been in traditions that have long standing that I was invited into, then left, and then I was embraced in another tradition, and I ended up not. I ended up not going back there because of, not because I wasn't welcomed, but I felt like I was an outsider looking in, and that people like me, and I've done a lot of work in my life, people like me were actually dismantling their practices by being the voyeurs that we were. And I started to feel really disgusted at that kind of spiritual tourism that I was taking a part in. And so I came back and I said to the spirits, this isn't feeling so right. I want a tradition that I can teach that comes directly from the gods. And then the wind work came.
That's beautiful. That is a gorgeous story. That's really a gorgeous story. Yeah, yeah.
And that's how it happened for me. And but I don't judge the people who, like you said, who want to go to, who want to go to other traditions and get what they need from them.
Yeah, one of the things that I talk about, and I've talked about this uh, um, on some of my intro calls for the Shift Network, and I am going to be teaching another course on shamanic journeying through the Shift Network, and you'll hear about that at some point. But what I teach people is that, like right now, children are of the elements, terrified of the elements. They're killing people in their communities. They're killing people in their families. They're taking away their homes. They're scared. Their parents are scared, so they're scared. Their parents don't are afraid of the elements too. And so, what I found is that other cultures are not coming into schools. Indigenous cultures are not coming into Western schools and educating and bringing in drums and having kids play shamanic games and going out and singing and dancing an animal that they feel is coming to them, and talking to them about how the rain is just cleansing us and the wind is cleansing us and giving kids a different perspective. I have students going into hospitals and working with doctors, and I have students who are being called into big businesses, asking them for help with using shamanic practices to bring them back to an ethical place and to a bonded place, so they're working as a team. I had one student who was actually part of Bill Clinton's climate change meetings. And so, in being able to teach for what is important right now in our culture, is cannot be replaced. It cannot be replaced because we know the words, we know the languaging, we know how to speak to people in our particular culture. Um, I was teaching a workshop, and I love this student, and she's deceased, and oh my God, I miss her so much. But the first time we met, we clashed. And we were at a workshop, and I was calling in the spirits, and she comes up to me afterwards and she says, Sandra, this isn't the same as the tradition that I taught, that I learned. I learned that you start with a feather and you have to do it like this. And I said, my God, I've never even heard of that before. And so, what starts to happen is we start to, when we work with Indigenous cultures, we can start to try to memorize and mimic, instead of it being a true sacred work, where if you're working from your heart, um, the spirits hear that. When you're trying to read notes from a teacher, first step, do this, okay, I gotta do that. Now, what's the next step? You just lost all the sacred energy. So, so to have the unbelievable gift of studying with people who this has been their tradition for hundreds and thousands of years is irreplaceable. It's absolutely irreplaceable. But I've also found, because my desire has been to help Westerners, people in my culture, that I had to work with my spirits really hard to update all the methods that I was even bringing through, because they were my clients couldn't deal with them because they were too psychologically sophisticated. So I had to change my work for psychologically sophisticated clients. And I got amazing results from doing that. Amazing results, unbelievable miracles, because we were able to speak to the people and touch their hearts because we knew the right words.
Yeah, that's so important. I've been on a lot of summits where people started by calling in the directions. And so many times I'm there like, oh, you studied with X.
Right.
It's like, it's like, and you know what it does to me? It adjusts my perception to, like, I don't listen to, it's hard to listen to whatever comes out next, or like you read a book that somebody's like, did you just steal everything your teacher taught you, or did you go out and have an experience too that was your own, that you're now writing about? And it's kind of like a spiritual plagiarism instead of a direct revelation where, when the wind started talking to me, it took me a minute to even know what to do with it. It was like, I thought it was a metaphor. And it wasn't until I'm there like, okay, well, why are there 150, 200 wind gods and goddesses? Why am I finding them? And then I started to call to them and invite them in to teach me. And I didn't get that from anywhere else. In fact, when I went back to some of these cultures that I had sat with or studied with and said, so what do you know about the wind? It'd be like, not much. In it. All right. Well, you've got wind gods and goddesses that come from your lands. Have you, visited with them? And that was like really a revelatory experience for me too. And finding the people who really got it and said, some of the in cultures that I wrote about, I went to experts from those cultures and said, is this correct? And there was the wind goddess from Temu, an island of Jeju. And the woman who had written like articles about it said, I just don't know why you think this is so important. That wind only comes once a year for 3 weeks. I'm there, yeah, but she comes every year, once a year for, for 3 weeks. I said, so like, really, what were you writing about when you were talking about it? And not to minimize her experience with it, but just like when you start to have your own experience with it, you get the priority of it.
Right. Well, that's it. That's you got it. And that's it. And that's where the words direct revelation comes in, because you got it on your own. You were the hollow bone for that information and you brought it through. I mean, imagine if you didn't listen. We'd all be missing the winds of spirit.
I remember Hank, he called me up when he saw the book and he's there like, Renee, the winds came to see me. I was lecturing and this woman in the back of the room said, hey, Hank, the north wind is here. And so he got a paragraph of it. And I'm there, oh, I looked at him, I said, oh, it's too bad you weren't really listening that day. And not maybe it wasn't his to bring in, but it was just like you've told the story about when you got the soul retrieval, and I think it was the soul retrieval, and you're there like, oh, I just can't possibly bring this out into the world. And I was like, what did she say? Oh, well, I'll find somebody else who will.
Yeah, yeah. Isis. I said to Isis, I can't do this. I don't know how to write. It's my first book, Soul Retrieval. I was just a baby, and she goes, "Oh, that's okay. I'll find somebody else to write it." She left, and I'm like, "Wait, wait." So she never helped me write it, but what she did is I saw her standing behind me, and whenever I journey, she would talk to me. And she talked to me about rhythm, that a book has to have a rhythm, and you have to be able to take a reader up and be able to take them down, not keep them with no notes too long because they'll fall asleep. So she ended up teaching me an amazing amount about writing, but she made me do the writing, you know. And that's the power of direct revelation. She told me that I had to have rhythm, but she didn't tell me how to create it. And and what I've noticed now in my life is with all the AI stuff and everything, I'm noticing because I've been a person who reads books with a rhythm. I've been noticing that the rhythm is changing in everybody's writing. With AI coming out now, it's a different rhythm
That's
that you
interesting.
get.
I was reading a post in the Shaman's Cave this morning, and I'm there like, yeah, this sounds like AI wrote it. And it was, it almost had an experience. And I have to say that I do love AI because what it has done for me is, I'm a constant creator. And so I can create and create and create ideas, and it can kind of give me some structure to the creations. But I've learned that you're right, it doesn't have that rhythm and it doesn't have that feeling as something, that you just can't take it, paste it word for word, because it loses your soul. And trust me, my other fear is, that if I share too much with AI about what I'm thinking about or what I'm crafting, that I'm going to be giving it to somebody else who's looking to on a similar way, because direct revelation is like, if I didn't write the Wind book, I'm sure somebody else would have come up with it in the next few years, because it was time for the winds to resurface on the planet, and simply that.
Yeah, and I do want to say that I have been alerted, and I don't know how to deal with this legally, but I was told to let the whole world know about it, that there is a mega business company that is taking books illegally so AI can learn how to write them. And so Hank Wesselman, who is now deceased, and my book, Awakening to the Spirit World, was illegally taken by a meta business company to teach AI how to write books on shamanism. Some people would see that as an honor. So um, I'm joining others in trying to find out my legal rights on this. Anyway, it's just something that's going on. So here we are. We started talking about, do you study with an indigenous culture? Do you go with direct revelation? And then we moved into AI. But if you watch the connection, you can see it. You can actually see it. Here we have these cultures that are drawing on wisdom that has been carried on unbroken hundreds and hundreds of years, and not always their work is unbelievably powerful and we really need it, but they don't always know how to integrate it into a Western culture. Then we have all these shamanic practitioners in the West trying to learn direct revelation, but unsure of themselves, so asking opinions of others and getting a lot of wrong information. So, where is shamanism going? It's getting very chaotic, and now AI is all trying to put it all together for us in a little nice, neat package. And shamanism is nothing but a nice, little, neat package. I do want to say that. And so it is really important for all of you who are thinking about um, your practice, whether you're first stepping into your practice or whether you've been practicing for years. If you're working alone without elders, how deep are you working with your spirits? Are you spending too much time on social media? Do you live a sacred life, a nature based life, where you're listening to your spirits and your spirits are guiding you on everything? Or do you need help from a native culture to start to find your way on the path? AI is happy to teach us shamanism. They'll be our teachers in the future. Who do you want to be studying with right now.
That's a great end. I just want to say that what really drew me to South America was the mountains. If I really think about it, like I was in the fit, and I wanted to hike the mountains. I wanted to the hike to the top of Machu Picchu and the top of Huayna Picchu, and and I think that the rest of it was the gravy that went along with it in a lot of ways was to learn how the people there respected their mountains and how they were so personalized, and that was a heart opening for me to see that, oh, we don't necessarily do that here. We don't have that reciprocal relationship where our mountains are like, I watched someone once bring in the mountain into his body as a as a trance move, and it was, you felt that mountain. It shaked the room, threw bottle caps every which way. It moved all of us, and then it scolded us, told
Hmm.
us we weren't we weren't honoring our own traditions. We weren't honoring our own past. We were taking things for granted, and we weren't doing our personal work. And that was a lesson. That was, and now I can go out and go to my mountains and get that lesson. Like last week, I went to the waterfall over in Orcas, and it was just bubbling and reminding me to be in the effervescence of it. We want to make
Hmm.
it out to be something so much more than it just sometimes is just to take off your shoes and put your feet in the river to let things go.
Exactly. Yeah, I've been going to the Pecos River with Woods, and we have our little chairs, and we just go and stare. And it's a beautiful river, but I live in New Mexico. Nothing's big as far as rivers go in New Mexico. And somebody actually commented on I was so proud of my picture, said, "That's it."
They did not.
And but we have to understand that everything on our land has a spirit. It's like people. It doesn't matter what things look like. It's the spirit. It's
Hmm.
the spirit. It's the spirit shining through. And what the native traditions have always been trying to teach us is that we have to be on a nature-based path because nature gives us our life.
Hmm.
And those teachings and like going to Orcas Island and seeing the waterfall, or me and Woods going and sitting and just staring. We don't talk. We just stare at the river for an hour and listen to it singing and moving forward, reminding us just let everything go. Life just keeps moving forward. This is what indigenous cultures are trying to teach us. We can find our own ways with it. I did. I was born loving the earth and being out in nature. Or we can choose to work with people who teach us how to connect in a sacred way so that healing is reciprocal, because healing is always going to be reciprocal.
Hmm. And you can also know that you can do a little bit of both. There's nothing wrong with getting some indigenous training because we're so out of touch. I mean, you go to Peru, you feel the heart of the people. You walk down the streets in the United States and you or wherever you might be, and you might not. So sometimes it's good to visit a culture with new eyes to see what it is. But unfortunately, just be careful when you go to those places. Like, when I first started going to Peru, not everyone had a watch on. When I left Peru, they were all having cell phones and, you know, trading out potatoes for their cell phones. And it was just like, it was really disheartening that how do you keep your heart when you're so connected to all the stuff that isn't of that heart?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The West has done a lot of damage to indigenous traditions. Um, Indigenous traditions are still hold knowledge that we all need. So it's an interesting journey, and And the bottom line is it all comes down to reciprocity. It all
Mhm.
comes down to reciprocity. What you give, you do get back.
Mhm.
And that is one of the most powerful shamanic teachings that there is. Um, and so, in saying that, if we're giving you something, if you feel like you're getting something from watching our show, and if it's meaningful for you, I hope that you will push subscribe and that you will like us and that you will comment on our show.
And I'll take it one step further and buy our books. Like support us in our books or send us a donation. I mean, it's not the other day, and I'll just end with this. Somebody wrote to me and said, "Hey, I see you're teaching a class. I'm wondering if you give scholarships." And I'm there like, well, what scholarship are you wanting to give? Like, like, what are you just wanting me to give you the class, or do when I went to the lodge, we used to put out a blanket where people would put cans.
Right,
It's like, I don't, it's not just about taking, it's about returning, bringing a can. If that's all you have, she said, "Oh, I'll give you a can of beans." It'd be like, great.
right.
So think about that. What are you bringing to the situation, or are you just, taking from the situation? But we're happy because Sandra and I have a great time before the class, before the talk, when we're doing it. We laugh the whole time and we really enjoy each other, and we enjoy that you enjoy us. So all of it's sacred reciprocity here.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And so we really love you, and we always send you blessings. We think about you. We think about what's coming up for you. We talk about that. The topics that we come up with, it's we're watching what you're thinking about, and so we're trying to care for you. So um, we accept whatever you're willing to give, and we will receive it gratefully.